Did you know that every morning, without realizing it, you engage in a mental process that programs your brain for scarcity? This sequence is so subtle that you don't even notice it, but it's there, working like a silent virus that sabotages every effort to progress. The most shocking thing is that no matter how much you earn or how many opportunities come your way, as long as these patterns are in your mind, you will keep coming back to the same place. Poverty is not an accident of fate, it's an operating system. Today, I will reveal the 7 mental habits that trap millions of intelligent, capable people in cycles of financial survival. What you're about to discover may make you uncomfortable because it means you have more control than you thought. But it also means you have more power than you ever imagined. My name is Brian Tracy, and I have spent decades studying the minds of people who have transformed their financial reality. I'm not talking about luck, connections, or perfect circumstances. I'm talking about the specific thought patterns that distinguish prosperous people from those who struggle. If you're here, it's because something inside you knows you deserve something different. But before we continue, I want you to understand something crucial. What you're about to hear are not motivational techniques or magic formulas. They are profound psychological truths that require courage to implement. Changing these habits means changing your identity, and that always creates resistance. The first habit that traps people in poverty is automatic and devastating. It's living in constant reaction mode instead of creating from a vision. Most people wake up every day responding to emergencies, problems, and external demands. They consume their mental energy putting out fires instead of building something meaningful. This pattern begins the moment you open your eyes. You check messages, the news, work problems, and outstanding debts. Your mind immediately goes into survival mode. From that state of mind, it's impossible to think strategically. It's impossible to see opportunities. It's impossible to make decisions that build a future. Have you noticed that the most successful people don't live reactively? They have morning rituals, planning systems, and dedicated time for thinking big. It's not because they have more time, it's because they protect their mental clarity as their most valuable asset. When you live reactively, every day is an updated version of the previous one. The same problems, concerns, and limitations persist. Your brain gets used to functioning from a place of scarcity and urgency. Every decision you make from there on out reinforces the cycle. Breaking this pattern requires a radical decision. Decide that the first few minutes of your day will be dedicated to your vision, not your problems. Decide that before you check your phone, you're going to check your goals before reacting to the world. Connect with your purpose. This isn't about ignoring responsibilities. It's about prioritizing where you respond from. When you act from your vision, problems look different. They become challenges that bring you closer to your goal, rather than obstacles that push you further away. This shift in perspective completely transforms your energy. You are no longer a victim of circumstances. You are an architect of solutions. Instead of running after problems, you move toward building what you really want. The second habit that destroys economic potential is the obsessive need for certainty before acting. Millions of intelligent people are paralyzed, waiting for guarantees that will never come. They want to ensure that their decisions are perfect. But that quest for perfection is precisely what keeps them stuck. Certainty is an illusion. The most successful people don't have more information than you, they're just willing to move forward with what they have. They understand that action generates information, not the other way around. Every step you take reveals the next step. However, if you don't take the first step, you'll never know what the second step is. How many times have you had an idea, project, or opportunity and put it off, waiting for the perfect moment? You wait for more money, more time, more knowledge, or more security. Meanwhile, someone with less preparation but more courage is already executing it. This need for certainty is often disguised as prudence, responsibility, or even intelligence. But in reality, it's just fear in disguise. Fear of failure, of judgment, and of stepping outside your comfort zone. This fear, though it may feel protective, does the most damage in the long run. Opportunities don't wait for you to feel ready. They appear, stay for a limited time, and then they're gone. When they leave, they don't return the same way. Circumstances change, the market evolves, and other people fill the space you were saving for when you felt ready. Transforming this habit means developing tolerance for uncertainty. It means training yourself to make smart decisions with limited information. It means trusting your ability to adapt and learn more than your ability to predict the future. This doesn't mean being reckless or impulsive. It's about distinguishing between calculated risks and irrational fears. It's about distinguishing between sufficient preparation and paralyzing perfectionism. It's about distinguishing between intelligent caution and elaborate excuses. Each time you choose to act despite uncertainty, you strengthen a crucial mental muscle, the muscle of self-confidence. That confidence becomes the foundation on which you build everything else. The third habit is subtly destructive because it feels virtuous. Seeking constant approval from others before making important decisions. This pattern turns your dreams into public debates and your visions into watered-down consensuses. When you constantly seek external validation for your ideas, you give away your decision-making power. You turn your life into a democratic project where everyone has a vote, except for your intuition. The problem is that most people are programmed for mediocrity. Their advice reflects their limitations, not your potential. Big decisions, the ones that change the course of a life, are rarely popular at first. They are often misunderstood, questioned, and even ridiculed. They challenge the status quo. They require a vision that others don't have. They involve risks that others are not willing to take. Have you noticed how, when you share an ambitious idea, many people's first reaction is to point out everything that could go wrong? They don't do it out of malice. They do it out of fear, out of their own limitations, out of their own comfort zones. However, your life cannot be limited by the comfort zones of others. Your potential shouldn't be conditioned by the fears of others. Your vision shouldn't be subject to the approval of people who have never had that vision. This doesn't mean becoming secretive or arrogant. It means developing the ability to distinguish between advice that propels you forward and opinions that hold you back. It means distinguishing between perspectives that expand your vision and those that contract it. Valuable mentors are those who have achieved your desired standard of living and understand the kind of decisions required to reach it. Their opinions carry weight because they are backed by relevant experience. However, validation from well-meaning family and friends who have never walked your desired path can be the biggest obstacle to your growth. This validation comes wrapped in love, concern, and care. It's hard to reject something that feels like protection. Learning to make decisions based on your own clarity while consulting relevant sources, but not delegating your decision-making power, is a skill that distinguishes those who build the life they want from those who live the life others think they should have. The fourth habit that keeps people in cycles of limitation is deeply unconscious. They identify with the struggle rather than the outcome. Many people build their identity around how difficult their life is, the obstacles they face, and the injustices they suffer. This identification with the struggle becomes addictive because it generates a perverse form of validation. People listen to you, pity you, and give you attention when you talk about your problems. You become the protagonist of a drama in which you are always the victim of external circumstances. However, there is a devastating price to pay for this attention. Your mind begins to equate your personal worth with your capacity to endure suffering. You unconsciously sabotage solutions because solving problems means losing your identity and the source of your validation. Have you noticed that some people seem to constantly attract problems? It's not bad luck, it's mental programming. Their brain is trained to find confirmation that life is difficult and that things don't work. They are always looking for something that victimizes them. This victim mentality attracts circumstances that confirm it. What you actively seek, you find. If you look for proof that the world is against you, you will find it. If you look for evidence that you can't thrive, you'll find it. Transformation begins when you decide to identify with the solution rather than the problem. It begins when you change your internal narrative from "why is this happening to me" to "how can I use this to grow?" You stop being the protagonist of tragedies and become the hero of transformations. This does not mean denying real difficulties or minimizing genuine challenges. It means changing your relationship with them. It means viewing them as building blocks for your character rather than as evidence of your victimization. Prosperous people face the same types of problems as everyone else. The difference lies in how they process those experiences mentally. They are not defined by what happens to them, but by how they respond to it. When you change your identity from victim to creator, everything in your life begins to reorganize itself. You stop attracting circumstances that confirm your limitations and start attracting opportunities that reflect your new level of consciousness. The fifth habit is so common that it seems normal, but it is devastatingly limiting. It involves putting off gratification indefinitely instead of enjoying the process of building. Many people live in a hypothetical future where they will finally be happy once they reach a certain goal, income level, or status. This mindset turns your entire present life into a means to a future end. You sacrifice today with the promise that tomorrow will be better. But when tomorrow comes, a new goal emerges that demands more sacrifice. The cycle never ends. The problem with this approach is that it trains your brain to associate success with suffering. You believe that if you're not struggling and sacrificing, you're not making progress. It makes you feel guilty when you enjoy the present moment because it means you're not working hard enough for the future. Have you noticed people who achieve their financial goals but don't know how to enjoy them? Those who reach the income level they wanted but immediately set a higher goal because they don't know how to feel satisfied. They are successful on the outside but empty on the inside because they never learned to find satisfaction in the process. True prosperity is not a destination you arrive at after years of misery. It's a way of life in which you find satisfaction in daily growth, gradual progress, and the constant building of something meaningful. It means developing the ability to celebrate small advances, recognize incremental progress, and find pleasure in daily actions that bring you closer to your goals. Not because you have arrived, but because you are moving in the right direction. The most successful people don't live in the future. They live in the present with an awareness of the future. They deeply enjoy what they are building as they build it. They find purpose in the process, not just the outcome. When you learn to derive satisfaction from the journey, your energy multiplies. You no longer need external motivation to keep going, because growing becomes its own reward. You no longer depend on future achievements to feel valuable, because you find value in who you are becoming every day. This transformation completely changes your relationship with time and effort. You stop seeing work as a sacrifice and start seeing it as an expression of yourself. You stop postponing your happiness and start creating it in the present moment. The sixth habit is one of the most destructive because it masquerades as a virtue. It prioritizes security over growth in every important decision. This mindset turns life into a protection project rather than an expansion project. Security is important, but when it becomes your highest value, your life shrinks. Every decision becomes filtered through the fear of losing what you have instead of the excitement of gaining more. This mindset keeps you exactly where you are. Have you noticed how prosperous people are willing to risk their current comfort for future growth? It's not because they're reckless, it's because they understand that true security doesn't come from clinging to the familiar. Rather, it comes from developing the ability to adapt and create value in any circumstance. The obsessive pursuit of security makes you dependent on external forces. You depend on your job continuing, the economy being stable, and circumstances not changing. But the world is constantly changing. The only real security comes from your ability to navigate change and create value regardless of external circumstances. Prioritizing growth over security develops internal resources that no crisis can take away. You develop skills, perspectives, networks, and capabilities that become your true security. This isn't because you can't lose external things, but because you have the confidence to rebuild and create value again. This doesn't mean being reckless or ignoring planning. It means understanding that the greatest recklessness is remaining static in a dynamic world. The greatest risk is not taking any risks. The most dangerous strategy is not having a growth strategy. The most valuable opportunities always require you to step outside your comfort zone. They always involve some level of uncertainty. They demand that you sacrifice something in the present for something in the future. If your automatic filter rejects anything that doesn't guarantee total security, then you reject everything that could transform your life. Prosperity requires an investment mindset, not a protective one. It requires a willingness to use current resources to create future capabilities. You must change the question from what can I lose to what can I gain. When you develop intelligent risk tolerance and learn to distinguish between worthwhile and unnecessary risks, and build your security on internal foundations rather than external circumstances, your entire life changes direction. The seventh and final habit is perhaps the most subtle yet powerful: consuming information without taking action. Living in a state of perpetual preparation without ever feeling ready to act. In the information age, it's easy to confuse knowledge consumption with actual progress. Reading self-help books, listening to motivational podcasts, taking online courses, and attending seminars all feel productive. All of these activities feel productive, but if they don't translate into specific, measurable actions, they're just intellectual entertainment. How much information have you consumed about success, productivity, finance, and entrepreneurship? How much have you actually implemented in your daily life? The gap between what you know and what you do is where most human potential is lost. This habit is seductive because it gives you the feeling that you are making progress without experiencing the discomfort of actually changing. You can feel like you're growing while maintaining the same lifestyle. You can identify as someone working on themselves without facing the resistance that comes with real transformation. However, knowledge without application is not only useless, it's counterproductive. It creates a false sense of competence. You convince yourself that you know how to do things, but in reality, you only know how they're supposed to be done. The difference between knowing something conceptually and knowing it experientially is enormous. Successful people don't know more than others. They implement more, they don't consume more information. They make more decisions. They aren't constantly learning new theories. They're constantly applying basic principles. Real transformation comes from taking a simple idea and executing it until it produces tangible results. It comes from choosing a principle and practicing it until it becomes part of your character. It comes from committing to a specific action and repeating it until it becomes automatic. This change requires sacrificing novelty for consistency. It requires sacrificing the feeling of always learning something new for the satisfaction of mastering something specific. It requires sacrificing the comfort of consumption for the discomfort of creation. When you break the habit of perpetual preparation and start implementing consistently, you discover something powerful. Action generates more clarity than study. Experience teaches more than theory. Specific mistakes are more valuable than general knowledge. Now that you know the 7 patterns that keep people stuck in cycles of limitation, you have a crucial decision to make. You can treat this information as intellectual entertainment, feel like you've learned something new, and continue living exactly the same way. or you can use this information as a mirror to recognize which patterns are active in your life and commit to transforming them. Your response will determine whether this knowledge becomes power or remains mere consumed information. Real transformation doesn't happen when you conceptually understand what you need to change. It happens when you decide emotionally that you can't continue being the same person. Each of these habits represents a way of thinking that produces predictable results. If you change the way you think, you will automatically change the results. However, changing the way you think requires more than intellectual understanding. It requires deliberate practice, daily consistency, and the courage to act differently, even when it feels uncomfortable. Poverty is not a condition imposed by external circumstances. Rather, it is the inevitable result of specific mental patterns repeated over time. Those patterns can be changed, not overnight and not without effort, but they can be changed. Your mind is the territory where the battle for your financial future is won or lost. Now that you know the territory, know where the traps are and how to avoid them, and understand the mechanisms that create limitations and generate expansion, you have everything you need to begin a real transformation. Not tomorrow, not when you have more time, and not when you feel more prepared. Today, now, with the information you have, with the resources you have, with the person you are right now. The prosperous version of yourself isn't waiting for external circumstances to change. It's waiting for you to change your internal patterns. This change begins with a decision, is sustained by daily discipline, and materializes through consistent actions that reflect your new way of thinking. Choose a habit. Commit to changing it over the next 30 days. Not all at once, just one. Master it completely before moving on to the next one. Lasting transformation doesn't come from dramatic changes that you can't sustain. It comes from small, consistent modifications that add up over time. Your financial future is not determined by your past, education, family background, or current circumstances. It is determined by the mental patterns you choose to consistently implement from this moment forward. If something inside you resonated with these ideas, and you feel that these words touch something real in your experience, then you already know what your next step is. It's not about consuming more information on the subject. It's about taking the information you've just received and immediately implementing it in a specific, measurable action. That's where your transformation truly begins, in the decision to move from knowledge to action. It's not about understanding the concepts, but applying the principles, not in identifying patterns, but in changing habits. Your prosperous life is waiting for you. It's not somewhere out there. It's in the version of yourself that emerges when you decide to think, act, and live with an abundance mindset rather than a scarcity mindset. That decision, made with total commitment and executed with daily discipline, is all that separates your current reality from your true financial potential.